Let me double check, make sure we good on my phone.
All right, Keith. Well, nothing else. I'll get it back from you again, like I did last time. I ain't gonna worry about it.
No, no, no. Don't worry about it. All right, all right. Let me double check, make sure we all good. All right, all right. We all good. I like that. All right, all right. We back for round two, y'all.
Yeah, my bad. I got you on the phone too, so let's get it going.
Let's get it going. All right, all right. Let me do my intro and I'll tag you in. What's good, everybody? Welcome to another show of Premi Prego, where we talk about lessons, legal insights, and we have some laughs. I'm taking a page out of Greg Dawson's book. My little legal disclaimer: this is not legal advice. I'm not advising you at all or anything. This is educational purposes only. My name is Maestro Stevens. If you don't know about what this channel is, Premium Prego is basically a metaphor or an acronym, or you can call it a short name for premeditated pregnancy, aka reproductive coercion, aka the trap, aka trying to get to the bag using the baby. You know, we don't like that around here. And one of the biggest things that I'm appreciative of is having someone like a Greg to help guide us in the right direction, you know, when we get lost or when we need some help. So I'll let Greg get to his intro and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's topic.
Hey, first of all, that was his description because I don't want to make anybody angry because I think we got something really big planned for them the next time up. So I'm gonna get to the bag. But my name is Greg Doss of GD9 Attorney Pro Se Consultants, and as you can see over this shoulder, I'm not an attorney. Don't have a license to practice law. I do not practice law, nor do I pretend to practice law. What I've done is study law and tell people what I learned and how I gather that information, which is essentially I'm sharing my story. So I do not give any information as advice to apply to anybody's specific case. All I do is give general information regarding the law, which without the legal advice. And as I tell everybody, I highly recommend that people find a licensed attorney in their area to proceed with any case. So let me go ahead and start this over. Like I say, I'm not an attorney, I'm licensed practice. I don't practice law. What I do is state law, tell people to learn how to get information. Don't give information as advice to apply to your specific case, but general information regarding law and lawful principles, which by the way belongs to the people. So please use any information obtained through this channel or anytime you see my face for educational purposes only. And the reason that I say that is because I want nothing that Greg Doss, Chagret Doss says to be construed to be legal advice. If you feel you need legal advice, I would highly encourage you to hire a licensed and hopefully competent attorney in your state and be legally advised. And with that being said, if you wish to continue watching this, please feel free to do so. And again, in all seriousness, all I'm doing is sharing my story with people, and what you take from it, what you will, and hopefully it can be a benefit to anybody, to people out here. So that being said, also I appreciate Maestro for bringing me on again to do whatever it is that you need me to help you do. You're a very smart guy, and you all and people will be in very good hands with some of the things that you have, I believe, planned for a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you back. We got some things to talk about. We got a few things. You saw the thumbnail, you seen the title,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Folks out there, if you are going through something where you feel your spidey senses are tingling, because you know we are Marvel and DC fans around here, your spidey senses are tingling, you know, I think that it makes sense for you to check it out. And that's the reason why we decided to, you know, give you some thoughts on how you can look at some of these tactics from certain people who practice law. And not everybody who practices law is always using these tactics. We're just giving you our experiences of what we've seen. As Greg said, our story. I'm just saying our experiences of what we've seen and what we know based on what we've been through. And we believe that, you know, some of this stuff can help somebody out there. You can do something with the way you want to do it. So let's start off with, well, I'll say it like this. This is my opinion. This is how I see it. I often see 3 reasons why a lot of men don't challenge the system, especially the family court system, more specifically than anything. I see as one being intimidation. And we're going to get into that today.
Hmm.
2 being the knowledge. Some people just don't have the knowledge. And 3 being the money. When I say money, I'm talking about being able to hire representation. That's what I mean by money. If you are seeking the knowledge, typically you're not going to be spending a lot of money, but you will be spending a lot of time. You know, and they say you either spend money to save time or time to save money. You can't have both. So in terms of intimidation, let's stick there, because that's one of the biggest reasons I believe a lot of men don't fight. Greg, what have you seen in terms of your experience? And some examples could be, you know, them looking at you suspicious. I know that's a big one that they tried to call you, and they've called me the same thing, you know, suspicious, you know, threats. Sometimes you can sense a threatening nature, you know, to your position. What have you seen when it comes to them trying to intimidate you?
When you say they, you mean within the court system or attorneys? Because, you know, it's a little bit
specifically attorneys. But if you want to get into the court system too, you know, there's nothing wrong with diving into that as well.
Without saying names, one of the things that I noticed, because my experiences are so layered, and I want to be always, you know, transparent. You all are speaking to Chagret many years ago, as you now know. You're watching a much more developed Chagret. I am considered a dinosaur from where I started. I just evolved because I was willing to utilize technology and other resources that became available to me, and I maximize whatever's at my disposal. So the me in say 2000 and let's just say 6 or 5 is not 2026 Greg. I was often intimidated by just the speech inside the courtrooms, and part of it was because, you know, I am a veteran of the United States military. Shout out to all veterans, particularly those who gave the ultimate sacrifice on as we celebrate this Memorial Day. But yeah, I used to hear they used to talk so reckless to me. I'm not gonna lie, and I was like, man, they're gonna do some bad things to me, and I would just capitulate. And the phrase that caught my attention that I went back one day and grabbed was, you need to learn the law. Well, you know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. As I began to become more familiar with the law, I'm not so much trying to be a lawyer, but just understanding the processes that I was involved in. The natural part of me, the person working in the school system, the person who was a union steward for the Teamsters, and the wide receiver, whether people think it's a diva, that thing came out of me. So now it's just about competition, which has always been a part of me. And as I began to better navigate the situation, other things started popping out. People who don't know, I've been charged with perjury in official proceeding. I was self-represented, had a successful outcome. I'm certiorari prepared, ready to go to the United States Supreme Court. I've had multiple driving out license cases. I had fewer issues with judges than I did with certain attorneys. I think we'll get into a little bit more of it, some of their tactics and antics where I think what I would consider them to have been unethical and unnecessary. But as far as child support, and they can all know what I think about all of them. For the cases that I've been involved with, particularly the last two that they just don't seem to want to let go, their conduct is not only unethical, I think it's unethical, and I believe if anybody who's a member of the bar should just go and look it up, so we don't have people taking shots at me like the other attorney tried to before I told him, hey, this thing was actually reversed by the second DCA. Just go and look at the files for any case I have, or even better still, Maestro, they can always call me and I'll just send all the stuff over there. I'm very transparent because I believe a lot of people can learn from what I did not know in the beginning, and also from applying certain fundamental principles, or just take them to an attorney. Hey, attorney, this is what we're learning has gone on multiple times, and hey, can you do something to help me out, or whatever it takes to get the relief that people should have. But like I said, I've seen all kinds of things in my traffic driving out license cases, bad police officers, bad judges. I've seen even in my civil litigation case. That might be what you're talking about. The civil litigation case that involves State Farm as the insurer. Some of the things that I've seen from these attorneys is reprehensible. And this is just me speaking. State Farm has not shown me that they're a good neighbor for anybody. So if they don't like it, then we're in litigation. So there's certain things I'm not going to divulge now because I'm in active litigation. My attorney dropped me. I'm not going to mention the firm that did, but the attorneys dropped me. I've been proceeding in litigation on my own, and as you know, I filed some 13 or 14 documents since I've taken over myself. And the benefit was my prior experiences prepared me so that when I was dropped, I didn't just go into free fall. I immediately just reached out, filed my notice of appearance, and began to proceed with that case. And I'm proceeding now. In fact, just had a hearing last week sometime in that case. I can't really talk. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's active litigation. And I did find out from their attorneys that, hell, they've been watching my sites. They even cried to the judge, and I don't say cry. They complained or alluded to the judge that they thought I was the product of AI. Or I'm doing some kind of AI stuff on YouTube for shit. I don't goddamn know reasons, but the reality is it was the strangest thing because I'm not just taking on individuals. I'm taking on massive entities, which I don't recommend for anybody. And trust me, if I had attorneys who were willing to help me, I would gladly hand it over to them. But what I could not take the chance of doing, Maestro, is not doing anything and just losing the case because I just am not fighting. And hopefully that helps you out with some of the things. And we'll get into more detail, but you already understand the background. Certain things I can't divulge because we're still involved in litigation. Once it's over, though, once the litigation is over, hey, it's balls to the wall. We're going to tell balls to the wall. We're going to tell it all.
Like that KSR1 song, the bridge is over. The bridge is over. Well, listen, I look at Greg as a highly respected person. He's very professional in his pro se litigation. Now, I know he's not going to call himself this, but listen, this is how I feel like Greg is.
Do you want to know what it is?
He's like the Morpheus, you know what I'm saying, at this point. And he's just letting you know that you probably want to know what it is, but he can't talk about it right now because he's going through some things. But in this situation, sometimes I feel like, or I believe that somebody has to take the leadership role. Somebody has to show us that I'm just in my beginning stages. I look at battle scars. I got a few battle scars on my face. If you think of like a war movie, and Greg has like his whole face. If you were to say like 1 or 2 scars on your face means you just started, Greg's got the whole thing scarred up. Got the tattoos, the scars, and
like Killmonger, like Killmonger,
like Killmonger. Right. It reminds me of a episode. I was a big fan of Atlanta by Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover. And there was an episode he was doing of Michael Jackson. If you ever see that, but he said something. He said this right here.
I choose you. You're my sacrifice.
Sometimes you feel like you get chosen to be that sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get chosen to be that leader. When it comes to the intimidation aspect, what was the biggest intimidation tactic throughout your whole journey? Whether it was a lawyer that was just starting off or a lawyer that was senior profile, they've been in the game for a minute. What was that intimidation tactic, tool, framing that they used against you, if you have one?
The one you said that was the scariest?
Either or
if it's an attorney, because I don't know which attorney did it, was the letter from the Florida bar charging me with UPL, unlicensed practice of law, which we know I don't do that at all. But aside from that, because every one of my driving without license cases, I was facing jail time. They even asked for jail time. In fact, one asked for 90 days. I actually laughed in the court for driving without license. In that case, well, we know they were all dismissed. I didn't do any jail time for them. Mm-hmm. And all these are based upon what we now know are what? Void orders.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can say this because I've already filed my 768.28 letter of notice of intent to the state of Florida to sue them for violations of fundamental rights, but I got to go through the process. But those things are frustrating because the prosecutor did file the case against me. So, but the perjury, because I was looking at 5 years in prison, is easily the scariest thing that I had to deal with. And in the abundance of clarity, people, I didn't even understand what the hell they charged me with. When I say that, I mean, I'm looking at the charge, I'm like, perjury. And from that perjury case, I had to start researching to figure out what were they charging me? What are the elements of the charge? What's my maximum exposure, which I found out was 5 years in prison, in the Florida prison. And it's going to come with an F. I even had the attorney in that case offer me a plea deal where I just agreed to the perjury and he won't seek any jail time, which we all know as people, you know, everybody knows it's common knowledge that more people plea out than take it to trial. I just happened to fight it, got it dismissed before trial, but there's no telling what could have happened. They didn't have anything necessary to charge me. But the reality is I still faced that, could not get an attorney, that would represent me for a reasonable amount. And because the person who made the allegation was a former Hillsborough County, Florida judge named Gregory Holder. He was a circuit court judge. He was the so-called witness. Of course, he never showed up, and that's a part of my greater story. But how many people would have faced down a judge, the mayor's head of security for writing the police report, several other entities in the Florida, not to mention the state attorney's office? And so that was easily the scariest thing. But every one of my driving out license cases, I was facing jail time. I have gone to jail for missing a court date, and they put the purge on me. That's how I kind of understood how to deal with purges. I learned how not to make promises that you can't keep. Understood about the 48-hour rule for sitting in there. And you know, my family was scared for me. In fact, even my kid's mom was like, man, why don't you just do that? And I'm just saying, let me go to jail. Let me figure it out. And by the way, I had started asking questions, doing some research. I said, if I'm in there for more than a week or two, then you come get me. My dad was like, man, let me just pay for it. No, let me figure this out. And I was willing to do that. And I don't recommend people do that. But I said, the only way for me to learn is to go through it, bro.
Can't go over it. Can't go under it. Can't go around it.
Too high. Okay. Got to go right through it. Okay.
Got to go right through it.
You're going to let it shine. Like that this little light of mine, you're going to let it shine. Yeah.
Man. You know, at the end of the day, I always see it like this. And we've talked about it before. They always want it's all about that money. You know, oftentimes it's all about that money. But
you got to get the money, baby. Everybody mad. Everybody mad.
But as they say, knowledge is what?
Power!
Knowledge is power. And the more you know, the better that you can do. I would say, for my experience, one of the biggest intimidation tactics that was used, because I haven't been through everything that Greg has been through. And the greatest part about his story and us pairing together, some of our knowledge is a lot of my stuff that I'm learning now is going to transfer over to civil cases, you know, in the future. And a lot of his abilities transferred over too. You know, skills can be transferred. Energy is not destroyed, right? You just move it over to the next thing. So when it comes to my intimidation story, for my family court scenario, I remember being in the hallway of the courtroom, and the other party's attorney decided to come up to me and basically try to offer me a deal. And I knew right then and there what was going on. I was already warned about it. You know, hey, you know, why don't you just settle? You can get X, Y, and Z. And I said no. Most men would have said yes, as Greg said. Most cases do not go to trial, and that's why we are in a different atmosphere. He's like in a different world, you know what I'm saying? Like a different world. Dwayne Wayne. I'm
Dwayne Wayne.
Yeah, Dwayne Wayne. That's what I said. Dwayne Wayne, not Wade.
Okay.
Wayne. Yeah. You know, Dwayne and Whitley. If y'all know anything about that, that's a little bit old school. But in terms of that feeling of, okay, this is my chance. If I take the deal, I have to stick to it. I can't renege. I can't go backwards. That's why they oftentimes want to get you to say things on the record. They want you to admit things because you can't unadmit it. If you try to, that's where I think the impeachment aspect of things come in. You know, you're contradicting yourself. Now, when it comes to other types of tactics, like narrative, and this is a big one too. I remember getting an email from you about how they try to depict you. And it was interesting. You had used the word characterization. And that was the same thing that they did with me in my case. If they can't find a fact, and Greg, you could chime in on this, but if they can't find a fact, They will use mischaracterizations. And it's a tactic that I did not know how powerful it will go to a ruling in the other party's favor. So what are your thoughts on the narrative, the mischaracterizations that they do to you?
Well, in the instances that I have, because I'm gonna say this, I try to say nothing disparaging about attorneys in general, but in some of the instances where I can speak to some of the antics and tactics for the attorneys that I've dealt with. I'll even say their name, like when I dealt with the case, me versus Chandra and Linda Tucker, and their attorneys from Austin, Rowe, and Baskel. And even if you all go to the one of my oral arguments, you'll hear a mischaracterization by one of the attorneys, the appellate attorney, saying that I voluntarily signed a release. But those who know me and have been following the situation knew what? I didn't voluntarily do anything. Judge Emily Ann Peacock ordered me to go and sign the release. And if I hadn't signed it, it would have the same force and effect in 10 days as if I had. And that's inside the case file. The order states that. So it wasn't so much that, and I did sign it under duress, which is clear. And one of the more important factors is that the reason I went there to sign it is because there's a Florida rule, and you all can look it up. But essentially, if I understood what the judge said, I may have been subject to contempt had I not done it. So that's why I make sure I put the under duress. The order is there. And then I don't know, did we have, I had it recently. We know I had a reversal and the mandate came down involving the lawsuit that I filed for fraud and the inducement against Austin Rowe Baskel, State Farm, and Miss Tucker. In my first one, I included the United States Department of Veterans Affairs because I found out that a VA lawyer was a part of the settlement conference, although he didn't file an appearance, which is a part of the rule. So, I mean, I've seen so many different things in my time. And the reason I drop names is because, one, it's substantial because you can find it inside any of my case records.
Off the bomb,
and,
drop them.
Yeah, and I've said even at the city council hearings, if people don't like what I say, if you think I'm lying about you or I'm slandering, just fucking sue me.
You know,
it's kind of weird that nobody wants any discovery, though, huh? Nobody wants me to get no discovery, so they're trying to get things dismissed, and judges have capitulated improperly. But now we get to go ahead and we get to deal with it, to include them trying to label me a frivolous filer or a vexatious litigant. But in order for a filing to be frivolous, it has to have no basis in fact or in law. That's Florida law, based upon what I've read. I'm not giving you legal advice, but just go look it up. And hey, the only one that seems to be telling the truth is the guy who's the non-attorney. And I'm also disappointed that so many other attorneys are aware of what went on and didn't police the other attorneys, because that's one of their obligations, from what I heard on an attorney say on one of these podcasts. The bar, the attorneys are the only, like, one of the few entities or whatever, or agencies that can police their own.
Got some couple people. What's up? Matrix RC8ZO. What's going on, man? Appreciate you for tuning in. We actually got a few viewers.
I don't know. I'm not great on the technology, people, despite what some may think. I know how to get around a little bit, kind of like Tupac, but not. Well, yeah, I did get around like Tupac too. But yeah, but the that's actually the most disappointing thing, really, bro, is that attorneys, judges, and what have you haven't policed their own the way that they should. Because they done it to me, they've done it to other people.
My inner monologue when I remember when I was in my hearing, and again, this is just my inner monologue. It's that pinky in me. If you ever watch Next Friday, this is how I be feeling sometimes.
Say it again.
Oh shit! Say it again. Oh.
That's I'll be like, when they lying on you, you just want to just come out yourself.
Amen, bro.
You want to come out yourself. But a big part of being a pro se litigant is being stoic. It's about being able to have an emotional understanding. emotional understanding to mitigate, hold back your emotions, because especially if you feel passionate about the topic, especially if you care about the relief, remember, you got to request that relief, because they ain't gonna give it to you if you don't request it
At all.
But if you care about that, you have to hold yourself back from getting angry. Now, you can be assertive, but I've had to learn, even when I listen to my own transcripts, and me and Greg talk about it all the time, get those transcripts. Like, that is one of your biggest assets and tools that you can use, because you can hold them accountable word for word, literally of what they said. Now, let's kind of swing a little bit and talk about the pressure. No Ari Lennox, or I could say no 2 Chainz, no pressure. But when it comes to that courtroom pressure, we talked a little bit.
David Boyd, but go ahead. It's actually David Boyd. Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. See,
Under pressure. Yeah.
No, I didn't go back to the old school way. I went to the modern day age version for young folks out there. But when it comes to that pressure and the tactics, there are a couple of things that I know we've talked about. We mentioned gaslighting, last time, but the bait. How do you avoid the bait? Because I remember where I was being, I call it poking the bear. I had a guardian ad litem on the stand, and I was trying to cross-examine her. And I remember when I was cross-examining her, she was trying to poke at me. And then she literally was like, see right there? See, that's that I'm talking about. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, that's how that gets you, because you do have a right to be upset, not necessarily angry, but to be upset and not to go with what they're saying. But if you show too much emotion, they'll poke at you. And I almost fell for the bait a little bit. I can definitely say I almost fell for it a little bit. So how do you avoid that bait, that courtroom pressure that they put on you, if you can avoid it at all when it comes to their tactics?
Well, you can only prepare. I tell people, I don't worry so much about what the other side is going to do. I just try to make sure I'm as best prepared as I can be. And again, I'll say this also. I don't have a problem paying attorneys for consultations. And I do it because I want to just get insight from a professional. I just try to prepare myself as best as I can without leaving anything unturned or what have you. But also, I do my best to focus on, like you said, I know what I'm here for. Hey, we're before the court today on this particular matter. What does it matter we're before the court on? I don't try to get to worry about everything else, and I try to stay singularly focused on the topics that are in front of me.
We have a little question here. Let me double check it.
I did respond to it. Yeah.
Oh, you responded? Okay. Should we truly expect the lawyers to go up against the machine they operate in? So elaborate on your response, if you don't mind. What was your?
Well, in Florida, we have what's called the Florida Rules of Professional Conduct, and it just governs how attorneys should behave. Just like they tell you to govern yourselves accordingly whenever you get a notice of hearing. I just expect people to do what they promise to do. And so do I expect them to, I don't like to call it against the machine they operate in. I just expect them to be honorable.
That's an interesting term to use, because
adhere to the oath that they took when they became attorneys. Because you can look, all these things you can look up. Like, I'm familiar with the Florida Rules of Professional Conduct, not to the extent that an attorney would be, but I know it pretty well because I've cited it in certain things, and I've dealt with not only bar complaints, I filed bar complaints because I want them to just be to hold. I want them to hold and govern themselves accordingly, because I, as strange as it may sound to people, I believe in the principles that make American democracy great. These aren't ornaments of a Halloween costume. They're mine, and they're going to be mine even when they put me in the ground one day. So I just expect anybody who takes an oath to uphold a certain set of principles to uphold those certain sets of principles. And that's what it is. So yeah, I to the persons, appreciate you for stopping by the Matrix. Yeah, I do expect them to do what they're supposed to do, or what they promised to do.
You have bigger hopes than I do, and that's the reason why we're having this conversation, because it's interesting. There's a certain sort of pessimism, or you can become a little bit more cynical, as you get, and I'm for real, I'm saying this because as you go through this journey, you're not all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the entire
No.
time. Then it feels like, okay, I should be able to get a fair chance. I'm going to get my due process. They should be honorable. They should honor their word. And then you learn over time. That's not always the case, at least from my perspective. And as Greg has already alluded to, we both had worked with attorneys, and not all attorneys are created equal.
Oh,
From my perspective, when I think of attorney, and this is not all, but when I think of attorney, I don't think of moral, I think of money. And the reason why is because I remember when I hired my first attorney at the tail end of my case because I was being intimidated. That's the only reason why I hired this person at the tail end. This attorney so happened to be the mentee of the mother's attorney. Just so happened to be the mentee, meaning the mother's attorney mentored the attorney that I happened to hire. And I remember her calling her mentor scrupulous. And I had to look up that word. What the heck does scrupulous mean? Oh, this person's scrupulous. I looked that word up. I was like, oh my God. Okay, this is a senior power attorney that has a reputation. Because when I talked to other attorneys, I hired another attorney after this one because it didn't work out. That person also knew this attorney. So this attorney had a reputation for being scrupulous. And it's just one of those things where I had to learn, okay, they will do whatever they have to do for their client at the time. Not all, but some will do whatever they have to do. What is your perspective on that term, scrupulous?
Well, they call it scrupulous, but some of us may call it zealous advocacy, and that's what you would expect them to give you. That's what you'd expect from any attorney is zealous advocacy on behalf of their client. I don't think that the zealous advocacy should tread into any unethical or improper behavior, but they're just fighting for their client. And I can't speak for an attorney because I'm not one and don't pretend to be one. I'll just say this. I fight for me like I'm fighting for me. How about that? And if I have an attorney, I want the attorney to fight for me like I would fight for me.
I wish I had my sound. See, when you said that, I thought of that. Catch me outside. How about that? That meme back in the day. That's what I thought about when you had said what you said. It's just an interesting dynamic, I would say, that you only understand. Hearing us talk about it is one perspective. You going through it yourself is a whole nother perspective. No matter how many times.
You mean theory versus application, right? And I believe it is the
application.
Matrix, I think, talks about that if it's the same guy. You talking about theory versus application. Everybody knows, like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan. You get hit. Yeah. Right. And so with that being said, again, I just tell people if it were me, I would find somebody, because even getting an attorney is a very serious endeavor. And getting that attorney and doing what's necessary with the attorney. Because at the end of the day, he or she is your attorney, still your case. At the end of the day, it's still your life. And don't ever take your foot off of that pedal.
That's why we talk about often know your case. There's nobody that should know your case better than you. Nobody should know your case.
Key Sweat, nobody.
Who gonna love
it like me? Hey, who's gonna set your ass free?
Hey, nobody.
And the band keeps playing on.
But Matrix have a question here, and I'll give my opinion on it. Greg will probably give a different opinion. From my perspective, I would say because I don't gamble, but if I was a gambling man, I don't normally. I wouldn't bet that.
I'm going to let you stick with that one.
That's the reason why I said my opinion and my perspective. If I were a gambling man, I wouldn't bet on it. Now, doesn't mean it won't happen. That's a question. Would you bet on it? Bets don't end up in conclusions. You have to wait till the conclusion gets concluded. Everything is done. But
every wager is a guess.
It's a guess. It's a guess.
But what you are trying to do is guess based upon the tendencies and the better odds. Because one thing you should never do if you're going to wager is put your feelings into the wager.
That's the bar right there. I wonder if that's Don DeMarco right there.
So to Matrix question, and I appreciate his engagement. And don't laugh at me, people. I expect the attorneys to do what the attorneys are supposed to do. Yes. Would I wager on it? Probably not. But is my expectation that they do the right thing? Absolutely.
So it looks like
I don't go in naively. Is that a better word? Or so trustingly that I don't have my guards up on them all the time.
Naivety. That's one of those beginning stages. Because as you go through your process, whatever that may be, you get a little bit more aware, less naive because you've been through experience. Like we talked about at the beginning, you have those battle scars. As Greg said, the killmonger. We'll just call it that, the killmonger. Okay. Right. I used to be naive as well too. I was hoping that this attorney would hold this one accountable. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. When you're a pro se litigant, you don't get to have those back chats. Like for instance, if we had some other guests in the back room here using this using StreamYard, there's back chats happening when you're watching live streams. People in the background, right. Gina said it on Martin, singing in the background. That episode with Biggie. Right. You don't get to be in the background, so you don't know the conversations that are being had, right, between your attorney and the other attorney. And that's why knowing your case is important. You want to believe that the attorney that you hired is going to be in your best interest. And they should be. They're supposed to be in your best interest. But again, you don't get to have those back chat conversations. And you're hoping that you're being given the transparency that Greg gives and that I'm giving with you all right now. You're hoping that they're going to give that transparency. Now let's move. You got something to say on that?
No, I'm just trying to stay out of I want to say I'm trying to stay out of line of fire because people know I will zealously defend Chagret or Greg, but I try to say nothing disparaging about attorneys, and I'm going to say this: the Most High did something for me, in that, and I don't know, and I think I've talked. If this is the same matrix we've talked about, me and some other people talked about it off air. I don't know whether or not me not having an attorney was the universe's way of pushing me forward. One of my battle buddy, my army battle buddy, we didn't serve together, we called ourselves battle buddies because we were both veterans, said the reason that nothing ended was because the universe, or he said God needed you to keep fighting, so he kept putting things in front of you to keep you pushing forward. That's why they never did the right thing. The story in the Bible is God hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? Mm-hmm. To keep him from doing the right thing. He said, these people don't do the right thing because, and I don't know if I don't want to say I wasn't called to do this, but I know that he blessed me with the gifts to do this. I was blessed with the gifts to do this by the Most High. And it's like, if I were sitting back on the outside, say I was an alien, I'd be like, why do they keep doing the thing the wrong way? Understanding fully that by now, and it's not a secret, he's not going to stop coming. Mm-hmm. Some people, when we talked about this off air, and I believe me and my buddy Maul spoke about it, a lot of people get discouraged. And I don't have a cure and answer for that. And what's going on Ingenuity, I don't know about this. I don't have a fix for you being discouraged. I don't have a fix for you. It's like falling off the bike. You get on until you master riding it. I don't get discouraged. I try to figure it out. I look at it. Do I get frustrated? Of course. Am I going to quit? No, because whatever has me going here is something that I can see is tangible. If there was no tangible way through it, I wouldn't be pursuing it. Mm. So I go just like going back to the frivolous thing. If I didn't think that I had any standing or bearing in law, I wouldn't be doing it. Anything. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. The way that I read it, I thought it was like ignite unity, unity.
You know, ingenuity. I had to see if I can look at it.
Shout outs. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Everybody coming here.
Yeah. No, that's dope. Let's get into some procedural procedural tactics. You know, again, this is all about the tactics that they use against you. We dropping bombs here. We dropping heat here. When it comes to the procedural tactics, you know, separating related issues. That's a big. Listen, let me start this one off because this one I had to learn the hard way. And Greg taught me a couple of things that I could have did that I didn't know better back then. But for my case, I filed for shared parenting. And when I filed for shared parenting, that was for the custody. Now, before I was able to file for shared parenting, I had to take a paternity test. I'm the one who initiated paternity. The moment I initiated paternity, guess what that started? It started the ability for them to collect, or the wanting for them to collect, the child support stuff. What I didn't know was that they separated, and they often do, the child support issues and the custody issues. And I had two different magistrates for these issues. So we're talking about procedural tactics, and they did it on purpose. Greg taught me that I could have petitioned, in some states it's petitioned, in my state it's motion. I could have motioned to consolidate. Now they would have fought me for that consolidation because they want to separate so that way you can't bring up the custody issue relating to the child support issue. When it comes to your situation, Greg, what have you seen in terms of procedural tactics like separating related issues, failing to connect the issues together, or even relying on a waiver when other sides don't know what to even raise? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, let me roll back and say this also, and I'm glad you mentioned that because this is key in my child support cases. All of my child support cases were circuit court cases. This is before they had the administrative issues in Florida. So that was one of my strongest protections came because, you know, the strictures of procedure matter in a court issue, a circuit court matter, or any kind of, when it comes to administrative rules, there's variances. Are they supposed to operate within the guidelines that the law has prescribed? Yes, but when they get outside of them, then you have to get it reviewed by the circuit court. But in the circuit court, when you have these kind of mistakes, some of these errors can be called fatal. And again, it's not legal advice. And put that disclaimer on the bottom somewhere in our thing. Make sure it keeps going across. So none of this is legal advice. But some errors could be deemed fatal. So if they make because when you talk about procedure, it's by the steps. Substantive is just what your rights may be. And that's just a basic breakdown of it. But if they miss the steps, hey, I can find out almost anywhere unless you waive it and go back and recapture it. But when it comes to like Florida now, the parents are there's a presumption that both parents have equal rights to the child and other things that are protective in the state of Florida. And that's only because it was petitioned for and they put it on it was written into law. And a lot of the problems that people have in other states is because far too much barbershop bitching goes on and people don't take their asses down and become involved in politics because people who don't think voting matters, because many of the idiots who don't understand how the process works, the law is written by the people you send up to Congress at the state level and at the federal level. So if you talk about, well, the law needs to change. Well, if you're not doing anything but sitting around crying about it, it's not going to change. What would be the motivation? You get people's attention by showing them that you're willing to help replace them, or be the change that you're crying about. Nothing precludes you from being an active member of society and showing up at city council meetings or county commissioner meetings, town hall meetings, or creating petitions to put things on the ballot to have the citizens vote for it and see what comes from it. But sitting around doing nothing will get you just that, nothing.
It'll get your pockets get your pockets a little thin.
In many cases with that, and here's something that may sound kind of harsh and naturally, I don't give a damn. A lot of people can't read. Period. Being functionally illiterate or functionally literate is not going to work in this endeavor. hoping that you can mimic and parrot what you heard somebody else say online will not work. You have to develop a sense of intellectual nimbleness when you go into these courtrooms. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass flushed. Listen, if you get into the ring with a professional boxer and you're not a professional boxer, you're really going to get your ass whooped. You can't go into a professional's arena and think that you can outdo them, especially when you're not doing what's necessary to outdo them. And I would challenge anybody on that, because I think a lot of this foolishness has gotten out of control because people seem to think things are going to work in court that have no basis in fact, law, or anything else. And I'm not saying do what I do. I'm saying do what's best for you. But when I put the BS to the side and started sticking my head in the books, losing hours upon hours of sleep, getting the gray hairs, I am 58, but getting the gray hairs, knowing and understanding being what it takes to be committed to something. And of course, shout out to the greatest institution of higher learning in the city of Tampa, the University of Thomas Jefferson High School. I was taught how to compete in school. So even though I put it to the side, it was still a part of me. My buddy told me we're always going to be soldiers. And if you think I was willing to fight and die for the country, but wouldn't fight and die for me, that's just sheer foolishness, right? I don't have to necessarily fight physically, but I fight intellectually. But I put the same amount of effort into understanding the rules that I put into understanding where my target might be, being proficient with my weapon or anything else, hand-to-hand combat, whatever it is I have to be proficient with. You want to be at the maximum level.
That's real. I can give one quick insight on one tactic that I've seen and I'm sure you have come across this too, that I didn't know is used often. I watched it on TV, but when it happened to me personally, I was like, oh, I see. And that was the tactic of continuance. That's a procedural, I'm giving you all specifics, and Greg is giving you all the specific procedural tactic that happened to me was continuances. And at first I was like, okay, I understand to a degree if it's necessary, but when you get a continuance based on a conflicting date that an attorney knew months prior, and then they wait to the last minute before your hearing is coming up and then they continue it, that's a tactic. How would you say, Greg, in your perspective, that continuances are used?
I've never I've rarely had some of late. Sometimes they're just, I understand the rules allow certain continuances. A lot of times there should be a conferral with the parties. And when you're self-represented, I run into this problem a lot. Attorneys and other sides seem to think that I work for them. And I had to let them know, hey, you owe me the same consideration that you owe any attorney. Stop just scheduling things because you don't think I have anything to do but sit around here and wait for you. That's just being respectful. And me and I'm pretty sure one of these judges is going to probably differ on certain things, but the reality is I have other things going on in my life as well, and everybody knows it. I can't pretend that I'm a secret to the state of Florida. And I'm not saying that to be boastful or narcissistic or egotistical, but they all are aware. Certain things have started happening where I say, damn, it's a hell of a coincidence that all these things are happening all at the same time when I have so many cases going on at the same time. But I think the better you get, the more likely you're going to run across some things, which is I want to get into this thing about the court reporters that we found out about, which is unreal.
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm known to utilize court reporters because it's part of the process. I learned that the appeals courts rely on the transcripts. So if you file without transcripts, typically they have nothing by which to base it on. They're going to defer to what the trial court came up with. So recently, I found out that a lot of these court reporting services don't do work with pro se litigants when it comes to in-person hearings in Hillsborough County. Surprised the hell out of me. And oddly enough, I have a hearing coming up that they wanted me to do in person. Well, one of my reasons for abating my renewed motion was because it's not only is not cost prohibitive, me not having a court, you not making sure, because if it's on Zoom, I can get the court reporter to be there, which I've known to do. Without having a court reporter there, I am at a disadvantage because I won't be able to get transcripts potentially. What's good, ML? And so I figured that out. And also, I'm gonna tell you this also. For a lot of these attorneys in my civil litigation cases, and oftentimes they say the moving party gets to use the court reporter. In my case, it just never seemed to matter. The court reporter that I use, and shout out to Scott Reporting, Miss Taisha Scott Reporting. She's showing up for every Zoom for me. She makes sure that I can get my transcripts quickly, promptly, and reasonably. Some of these agencies that work for these law firms are priced astronomically. Another discouragement. Now, I'm blessed to be able to afford it now, or have people around me that can help me afford to get the transcripts. But you're talking about $800-900 for some transcripts. But that if you don't have these transcripts, you're dead in the water.
I paid $1,200. I paid $1,200. That was for one case.
So, so you know, if you're in there for about an hour, you can expect about anywhere from $700 to $1,000, unless the other side gets him, and then the copy is is significantly cheaper.
And I wish I knew this before I paid that money, but yeah, I've ordered probably over $2,000.
And they have to be official, and they have to be official transcripts.
And that, so and that's
you can't try to record something and then put it in. It has to be an official transcript.
Not even just that. I'm gonna double down on it. When I applied for my transcripts, I didn't know, because they in my jurisdiction you get the text and then you can get the audio. And I thought that I can get, because like Greg had mentioned, the text transcripts are very expensive when you're not using your own court reporter. So I didn't have much money at the time, and I thought, well, if I can get the audio CD. And they actually made me drive 45 minutes. They would not mail me the CD. I had to drive 45 minutes to get this audio CD. I got the audio CD from the actual jurisdiction, from the courtroom. I mean, and from clerks, excuse me. And I thought, well, if I get the CD and I transcribe it myself, not me personally, but I use a platform to transcribe it, that would be enough. Like, that would satisfy the court. Well, as Greg is shaking his head, it wasn't. And so that was my first lesson. And that's the reason why I ended up ordering from the official agency the transcripts. But until I met Greg, I didn't know, again, that intimidation part, right? I didn't know you can have your own court reporter and you can get your own transcripts. So that was a lesson for me. So I thank Greg for letting me know about this.
Well, listen, I'm only sharing my experiences because at one time I didn't know. And in fact, if you wanted to vacate something under Florida law, I believe it's 12.491, if you don't have the transcripts, filing the motion to vacate essentially becomes moot. It's a non-issue because the process requires the attachment of the transcripts to the motion to vacate, because otherwise the reviewing judge, the circuit judge that's reviewing the administrative outcome, has nothing to base it on, and they're going to defer to what? The recommendation of, well, I learned they'll defer to the recommendation of the hearing officer. And I got some guys in here, I don't know who all was watching, but some of the guys who's in the chat room. Is the chat open to everybody? Do you have to be a member to come into the chat room?
It's open to anybody who watches the show.
Okay, so, but yeah, I know Mr. Lewis, he got his transcripts. He understands it as well now. Without those transcripts, everything else is futile, especially if you're talking about doing appeals.
Let's touch on that, because I would love to share some of my experience, not legal advice, just sharing my experience when it comes to those transcripts. And remember, we're talking about tactics, right? So when I appealed both my cases, and I appealed both of them, the custody and the child support, you have to be willing to appeal, because if you're not, then you might as well just follow the order that was given to you. But one thing I noticed in administrative tactics, I know we were talking about lawyers and attorneys and their tactics, but the tactics go across the board. And what they did with me was they delayed the transcripts intentionally to try to throw my appeal deadlines off. It happened twice. First time I thought it was an accident. The second time it happened, I said, no, this ain't an accident. How did my transcripts not get transferred over to the appellate court? Like, what's taking so long?
Look what he said.
Let me see. What did he say? 15 days to vacate with 45 days for transcripts. Get your own court report. Yeah, agreed. I agree. But to make a long story short, I had to call the lower courts, I had to call the trial courts, and I had to coordinate with the appellate courts. That's not supposed to be my job.
No,
The transcripts supposed
to. Well, go ahead. Go see your part.
It's not supposed to be, but I did the job anyway, right? And they act like they didn't know what the transcripts were.
So I want to say it's your case, so it is your job.
I agree. No, I agree with that. I meant from the other aspect of not being the job, because they're supposed to transfer the transcripts with the record. With the keyword is the record.
Didn't you in Matrix and other people talk about trust? You gonna trust these people?
But
hey, I tell people what I see all the time. I would never go to the devil to save my soul. Well, I went and talked to the people, and they said, "Man, I would never go to the devil to save my soul."
Hey, that's where that pessimism, cynicism, that non-naivety comes in. At first, you
well learned. I got the battle scar. Hey, Killmonger. I'm Killmonger. AKA Killmonger. I have battle scars for it. But and I've had some other guys who found out about the importance of trust the snake to be a snake. Absolutely, Michael Lewis. Absolutely. I want to say something. Everything I do is for appeal. And as to the transcripts, you got to make sure you put proper objections when needed during your proceeding. Otherwise, you're letting it fly. Because if you don't raise it, you waive it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, got to put those proper objections in there. Don't talk over anybody, but just make sure you state the objections properly. If they give you a moment of time to speak, whatever, you say, well, I want to make sure. And always take copious notes when you're in a courtroom. If you have to slow things down, if you have to just make sure you make a certain point, it's going to go really quickly. You're going to put in multiple hours for about 5 to 20 minutes of talking. That's it. So you want to be able to maximize and be as proficient and efficient as possible when you get your opportunities. That's why you have to know your case, know what your issues are going to be, and be willing to drive home those issues. And in the event you get an adverse ruling, make the proper objection, and let's go ahead and move it on. Ain't no sense in arguing here because they made their ruling. Hey, respectfully, okay, but objection. Well, I'm not here to argue. Objection is noted for the record. Let's move it on.
You got to document. I believe if you don't document, you can't prove it. If you don't document, you cannot. You got to document, and there's all types of ways.
It didn't happen, right?
And the one thing I will say this: the one thing that I definitely learned was that the truth is not proof. I repeat that: the truth is not proof. Two different things. So you can feel compelled. You can believe the truth, that you were there, you saw it, everything. But if it ain't on the record, like we talk about transcripts, then the whole issue can get thrown out. We got I
think he meant transcript, right? Wow, I'm so amazing. He means transcript.
I believe so.
If you mean transcript, if you're in Broward County or Dade? If he's in Broward or Dade, he probably would have to go to the courts, administrative, wherever they maintain the audio. Like I could show you like in Hillsborough County for sure, where to go about getting it. And then when you get it, they'll probably tell you how to go about getting it. Date, okay, yeah. Go to just go to your court administrative office and they'll tell you how to go about getting the transcript.
Yeah.
I always tell people a Zoom. Well, if it's on Zoom and it was administratively held, it's probably going to be a recording. Because a lot of times y'all might think that I'm actually speaking or whatever, but you'll hear it in the audio that I already have. The audios are just a part of the public record.
And this is my perspective too, because Greg is giving me some game in terms of like specific. I say you can use AI, use it to help you do some research. Hey, where do I get transfer? How do I get the transcripts? I mean, you can Google it, and Google has AI now too. But where do I get the transcripts, and what is the process? Because you have to go through a process. What form do you need to fill out? What motion do you need to, or petition do you need to submit? Again, this is not legal advice. This is what I've done. And I had to go through a process. And once I went through that process one time, it got easier the second time, and then the third time. Next thing you know, I have an automation built. So when I need a transcript or when I need my records, my docket records, I have an automation that can email. It fills out the form, it emails them, and then I can get my docket records that way. Every place is different. I remember Greg told me that he was able to get his stuff from online. In my situation, I can't get my stuff online. You got to actually call or go through their process.
Can you all see the screen or no?
Are you sharing something? You ain't say you were sharing something.
I think I'm trying to.
No, I gotta put it on stage. You know what I'm saying? I gotta put it on.
Oh, that's right. It's from yours. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. look, Greg's so used to doing the thing live. He ain't used to doing like being able to be on the other side. What you showing here? Oh, okay, I see.
See this? If you were here in Hillsborough County, this is what I would tell you to do. Either the media center, but we go through here. Yeah, because I do it so, and you had to get the form and do it, but go here. And you can order whatever you need to order. This shit here. No, that's it.
Yeah.
But see, I've been so used to just knowing how to call somebody to get it because I'm.
Listen, everybody can't call Tyrone, Greg. You better
well,
call.
It came as a part of But hey, everybody should know we're like in date. I think you were the 17th or 11th. Wherever you go to your page, it's going to tell you how to go about ordering transcripts and everything you need to know. You can get there. See that? You know everything there is to know about your It is the media center. Everything there is to know about your courses. Oh, there you go. And you can get it all there. And they just tell, hey, listen, send it to me. And from there, they just send it. I just call the guy and say, hey, listen, I need a copy of the hearing from this date involving these parties. Or I can say, give me the entire day, and they'll put it on the disc. I pay $16, I believe it is, for the disc, and they give it to you. Yeah. Maybe it's court operations, they call it.
Once you learn this too, that's another thing that people, going back to that intimidation part, every single jurisdiction has a website, if I'm not mistaken, where they have the information out there. You can just go to the website and get your stuff. I think a lot of people don't understand that there is a website, because they're so intimidated by the process. They don't realize there's some public records, public knowledge, there's public information. They give you templates, right? Oftentimes I've downloaded templates from my jurisdiction.
Well, I used to do that before, but now I would take it and start to I wouldn't say manipulate, but I work it. But like here, we did the show, remember, where I showed everybody how to set up your own online access. But me, I have my own accounts. So if I need to see something, I can see it. If I wanted to see, this is not my e-portal system.
And it does depend on what situation and what jurisdiction, because I couldn't log into any portal in my lower courts for my trial courts. When it came to the appellate courts, I could log into a portal.
And see, you wanted to file something, see my name up there? I can file electronically, I have my own documents. I want to complete an interview or generate a DIY, but then you continue. If I want to start a case initiation, that does everything to include getting you a summons, but you have to upload the documents. So it's just, these are just things that you can do. I just wanted to show people that there's nothing so super special about it. But, well,
that's big. That's big. It's big.
Yeah.
No, that's huge. We got another shout out. I know I don't want to say her name. I don't know if she was okay with that, but I appreciate her. Shout out to all the dads going up against the system that enables these bitter baby mamas and their foolish behaviors. Sometimes it'd be baby daddies too. We know that. Our baby daddies deserve better. Refreshing to see men helping other men, especially dads. Thank you so much. That means a lot. That it's very rare that people that are on the opposite side, especially in this quote unquote, sometimes they call it a gender war. And it's hard for you to empathize with the other perspective, the other gender, when you're going through so much. So I think it's a big deal, and I can't wait till we have another episode, another show where Greg is gonna, blow you out the water, where he has someone. I ain't gonna spoil it, but he has someone
So
that
you can tell him that what you discussed today and who we're going to bring on. It's okay. She said okay.
I'll give a hint, but basically, and I'm paraphrasing, because I'd rather you say it, because you know details better than me. But it's a beautiful thing where you have a party who was your ex in some way, and there was a discrepancy at some point in time, and litigation wise, the courts intervene. They try to intervene, and they will try to kind of pit you two together. It's very rare where you can have the man and the woman, a mother and a father, or ex this, and they may not like each other, right? Just on disagree. They may disagree on things, but when it comes to this matter here, it's mutual respect. You rarely ever see that. It's mutual respect when it comes to this litigation part. We don't, rock with each other. We ain't gonna say hi, buddy, this and that. But when it comes to this litigation, no, they treating you wrong, and that's especially when it comes to child support. Very rarely do you see that. Did I kind of paraphrase that? Okay.
You did a great job. Essentially, what's going to happen is there was a situation that came up involving me, and somebody brought this mother up about a case that they thought I still had ongoing. It's the case that you all heard me argue, where the mother filed the affidavit stating that she wanted nothing else to do with the Department of Revenue, didn't even want them bothering anybody. This case was she filed the affidavit back in 2013. She's willing to come on and let Maestro talk to her about that. She wanted nothing to do with it. Even told him that she chewed me out, thinking that I did something to try to bring something else back up. I'm like, why would I do that? It was all clear. The only issue was this so-called $800 that they're trying to make something another issue of. And she was pretty, and she told you what did she say about our relationship?
Say we don't get along. That was her words.
Yeah, don't like me. It doesn't like me at all. And so I'm good with that. The boys are grown, but the reality of it is something came about on the internet about this case that wasn't done by me, because I didn't bring it up. I'm not that kind of person. But she's willing to come on. It's going to be a pretty good interview. Essentially, you're going to have one of Greg's, Greg's children's mom, come on and clear the air in her own voice herself about what happened. And Maestro will be able to. We're not going to be on here forever, because it doesn't take that long for her just to say this is what happened and go on. But it's going to be targeted towards something else that went on, and we'll just end that right. We'll just nip that right in the bud.
It's one of those situations where look, she basically was trying to tell them,
you ain't got to lie, Greg. You ain't got to lie.
You ain't got to lie. Why you lying on Greg? And I respect that. I appreciate that. That's why I said it's a very rare scenario. I've watched many court cases online, and I would suggest, this is a suggestion from my experience, not advice, but when it comes to just trying to learn some stuff, watch some court cases. Watch some court cases online that they have. That way you can at least get, and again, Greg said theory versus application. So to a degree, I'm talking about the theory part, but I think there's a time and a place for theory. Because if you don't know nothing, you haven't applied nothing. And when you watch some court cases, I've watched child support cases where, and it's very rare, where the court wants to intervene, meaning they want to get involved, they want to order child support, but the mother is saying, no, we have a good thing going here. The mother's saying, no, he takes care of his kids, he pays me what I need, he helps me what I need, and I help him.
Or simply ain't none of y'all's motherfucking business.
It could be that too. But they will fight tooth and nail. They'll fight tooth and nail.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's nobody's business if you do. And by the way, the fact that the mother may need assistance is not some indictment that the father is obligated to pay something back, because there may not have been any set of facts that made a determination that you didn't do something that you were otherwise obligated to do. It may not even have been raised. So
speaking of, hit that like button real quick. I appreciate that. Wow, I'm so amazing.
I appreciate everybody.
Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button.
I never bring it up on mine. And by the way, I appreciate everybody. We just went over 20,000 subscribers.
Oh man, Don DeMarco on that one. Come on, man.
But the what we try to do, what I try to do is help people be better than what I think I am. I think all you all are going to be much better than me. As time goes on, I'm hoping that this thing can be eradicated. And at the end of the day, and one of the things that I spoke to her about before, we called you to make sure we could set this thing up is sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. But I think that there's a lot more mothers who at the end of it saw this is not beneficial for the children in many instances because it creates an adverse relationship between the parents and subsequently a disconnect between the parent and the children that's not necessary and that could otherwise be resolved. Because sometimes situations just are what they are. But I a great deal of gratitude. She signed the affidavit. She said, "Hey, screw it." And then the crazy part is now the dead attorney is sending me emails. So,
can you tell for the folks what an affidavit is? Because I had to learn too. That was very important.
It's a statement of fact. It's like a testimony of fact. So we don't really speak, but I thought it was just really interesting when it came up. I said, "Let me see." She said, because when she called me yelling at me, I'm like, "Man, listen, I ain't talked to you in a month of Sundays. I didn't do nothing. Well, there's something going on your account on there." And I was checking. I'm like, so I go look it up. It was somebody trying to start something. I look at it. I'm like, come on, bro. And again, the issue is not child support. The issue was the $800 and whatever dollars it was about the stuff is that called aid or what's it called, Medicaid, whatever it was.
Medicaid,
not $56,000, not anything else. It's not a child support. The bottom line is we all know this. The issues that I have are not. These people could give a damn about me and child support. It's about me knowing that they were stealing houses, me confronting them about it, me being at city council, me showing that there's a dishonest judge. Which, by the way, instead of people barbershop bitching, anybody in Hillsborough County who had a case in front of Greg Holder should be like, "Hey, listen, this guy is unethical because he lied on somebody to try to get him put in prison. Doss just kicked their ass." But how many other cases did he sit on for 26 years? How many cases involved Michael Victor, where Michael Victor filed a false police report and probably sent somebody to prison? These are the things that, like I told, mine is what it was. I'm okay. But the comfortability they had in doing that should be alarming to people. I was blessed to be able to win those things. Same thing with child support. All I was able to do was to find the discrepancies and move forward. And they don't like it. And candidly, if they fall down steps, I hope they feel I'm the one who pushed them or tripped them. I appreciate it, man.
Oh man, you got some. I appreciate you. Okay? Last tactic, because I like that we were able to touch on many different tactics that you can mitigate, you can prepare for. Right? Again, it's not legal advice. It's just our story, our experiences, what we've been through, and maybe you can borrow some of that for yourself. And the greatest part is that, as we mentioned before, these skills are transferable. And that's the part that I appreciate with Greg is that, he started off in some similar situation that I'm in when it came to the family court part. And he was able to take those skills and put it into the civil procedures and so many other ways that I'm sure it wasn't like he just forgot, the family court stuff. I'm sure it just kind of turned into, now this is a different matter at hand. What would you say in terms of fear tactics? I know we talked about intimidation, but is there anything fearful like them using their professional status? The language in the courtroom, using certain terms of language in the courtroom, or even the complexity of the legal system.
False evidence appearing real. And then at the same time as I became more knowledgeable of process and procedure, the fear kind of just went away naturally. And I'm sure that makes sense to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you know more, then, the level of uncertainty goes away the more that you learn, the more that you know. Mm-hmm. And I hope that makes sense to people. I'm not being funny. I'm not trying to be flippant. You have to delve into this and what you do in your profession. You're not the same guy that you were when you started your business 5 or 6 or 10, whatever. Forget when you started your business. You're not the same guy you were when you first endeavored to move into this area, into that arena. Correct?
No, not the same.
10, 15 years, however many years you are into doing what you're doing. You're not the same guy at all.
We can only show what we know.
Absolutely. And it's
That's-
about still improving, right?
I mean, I could just tell you right now, this has turned me into a new person. You know, that's why I kind of look at you sometime. You know, I know we have different backgrounds, different story. You have the military. You were in the military. I was a military brat, and they're not the same thing. But you know, that whole understanding.
I started off as a military brat first. My parents were both retired military.
Okay. Well, hey, I think it's a beautiful thing that I can see myself in you when it comes to, you know, my journey and where I'm going to be 10 years from now, even 5 years.
Way farther than me. Way farther than me.
I don't know. I won't know until, you know, we get there. You know what they say, we'll see you when you get there. And I'm hoping to get there.
Ross, I'll see you when I get there. You'll be ready, you know? For good love. And that's Lou Rawls, people. Damn, that DJ don't ever leave anybody, does it?
No. See, you got that history, that music history, like I do too, as well. So that's kind of some kind of cool common denominator that we didn't even know about each other. Is there anything that you would say that we haven't touched on? You know, if in terms of any type of tactics or anything else, you know, on the topic in general.
Well, if we missed it when we do the review, if people can say other things they'd like us to cover, then we cover it. You know, we've given them an hour worth of good information that they can come back through, and if they spot something that we could do better, let us know, and you know we'll do it. But you know, this is everybody. Go make sure you go to Maestro's page with Primo Pregi,
Prego,
yeah, and support the man, the things that he's doing. And I appreciate him for taking the time out of his day and bringing me on. And he's brought me a lot of way when it comes to technology and artificial intelligence and just other things and things that help tweak what I'm doing to become better, especially as I'm, you know, ready to step away. I'm an old guy now.
Listen, I tell you all the time, you say you want to step away, but you in the fight, you know, you in there full-fledged. So I appreciate you as well too. If anybody does want to get a hold of Greg, you can see the banner, the ticker at the top. You know, his website is very simple, GDNAPS, NAPSC.com. And, you know, it's not legal advice he's giving you, but he can give you some direction.
I coach.
Coaching is important. Yeah. I respect that. Well, yes. If there's anything else that y'all want to hear about, as Greg said, man, put it in the comments. Like the channel, you know, subscribe to the channel and like the video. And we appreciate y'all. We about to get out of here and get ready for the, as they say. Let me hold on. I gotta do my sound now because you know we can't do it.
Yeah, I gave my sign out too, but go ahead.
Hold on. No. We gotta do it correct. This is that Dr. Dre right here.
The next episode.
To the next episode.
Hey, listen, it's always imparting. Sometimes it's not about right or wrong. More important, it's about clarity. You never reach a resolution if you're not willing to engage in honest dialogue, even if the dialogue is with yourself. Take time to hug the person you love and love the person you hug. On behalf of GD Non-Attorney Pro Se Consultants, I'm Greg Doss. I'm also the infamous DJ Squid. I'm saying peace, and of course, I'm saying chicken grease. Hey, enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Be safe. Shout out to all veterans.
Shout out. All right, y'all. We out. Peace.